Hi everyone, my name is Alex Woodside and I'm here to give you some tips and tricks to help you prepare for the NSBA 8th grade All-State Percussion Audition. In this video, I'll be covering some general ideas to help you prepare for the snare drum portion of the audition. If you find this video helpful, make sure to check out the other videos in this series as you prepare for the different sections of the audition material. Let's start with some recommendations about the types of equipment you should be using to practice and record your audition. Beginning with the drum itself, you'll want to use a concert snare drum. Concert snare drums are 14 inches across and usually either 5.5 or 6.5 inches deep. A concert snare drum is going to have a fuller, more appropriate tone than a piccolo snare drum or a marching snare drum. You'll want to make sure that the heads and snares are in good condition before recording your audition. If there are holes or dents in either head, you'll want to talk to your band director or private lesson instructor about getting new heads for your drum. You also need to make sure the heads are tuned and the tension of the snares is adjusted properly in order to get a crisp, full sound from your drum. There are lots of different thoughts about snare drum tuning, but I like to tune the batter head to about an A, and I like to tune the snare head to a pitch just above that. Next, I adjust the tension of the snares so that I get a good response at soft, medium, and loud dynamic levels. I'll post some links to some videos that go more into detail about drum and snare tuning down in the video description below. The next thing you'll want to do is make sure that the drum is at the correct height for you. The top of the drum should be about waist high, and you should stand far enough behind the drum so that the tips of your sticks naturally come to the center of the drum head. A good way to check this is to take a few steps back from the drum and bring your hands down to your sides. With your hands at your sides, bend at the elbow until it's at just beyond a 90-degree angle. Then step forward to the drum until your sticks naturally come and rest just above the middle of the drum head. Now let's talk sticks. You need to make sure you're using concert snare drum sticks, not drum set sticks or marching sticks for this audition. Concert snare drum sticks are specifically designed to provide the best tone on the concert snare drum without being too heavy. I'll be using the Freer Heavy Orchestral Hornwood signature model to demonstrate, but Vic Firth SD1 Generals or Innovative Percussion IP1s will work great. If you find that these sticks are a bit too large for your hands, try the Vic Firth SD2 Boleros for a similar stick that produces great tone but works a little bit better for smaller hands. Let's talk a little bit about the technique we use when we play the concert snare drum. While you can use traditional grip, matched grip will make it much easier for you to produce the same tone in both hands while playing on a flat drum. When using matched grip, you want to put your fulcrum, the connection between your thumb and the first knuckle of the pointer finger, about 1/3 of the way up the drumstick. You may need to experiment a bit to find the right spot on your sticks, but you want to make sure that the fulcrum is in the spot on the stick that gives you the best bounce when you play. Next, wrap the rest of your fingers around the stick and make contact with the stick at the first knuckle of each finger. Finally, turn your palms toward the ground so that there is a nice wide triangle between your sticks. Keep in mind that when you hold the sticks, there should be just enough tension so that you don't drop the stick. If you squeeze the stick too firmly, you'll prevent it from bouncing the way it needs to in order to produce the best possible tone and the smoothest motions. A good way to check this is by pulling the stick out of one hand with the other hand and doing the same with the first hand. The stick should slide right out with almost no resistance, and that's a good sign that you're going to produce a good tone on the snare drum if you maintain that pressure. When playing the concert snare drum, your playing spot makes a big difference in terms of tone and volume. Most of the time, we want both tips of the sticks to make contact with the drum just off of the center point. This will produce the best possible tone on the drum and will give you the best rebound for each stroke. You'll also want to check and make sure that both sticks are hitting the drum in roughly the same spot. If your hands are using different playing spots, they will create different tones on the drum and your music will be less fluent. Here's an example of proper playing spot. Now, if we move one stick off to the side, you'll notice that we get a different tone from each hand. If we alternate our hands, you'll really notice the difference. Just an example of how important using a good playing spot is when playing this audition. One last part of your technique that will need special attention when preparing the snare drum portion of the audition is your stroke. The primary motion of the stroke needs to come from the wrist. Now your forearm allows the wrist a freer range of motion when it goes up and down, and it adds weight to the stroke, but the wrist should really be the first part of the arm to move when we go from our resting position up. Now, as we begin the motion, think about following the tip of the stick upward with the part of your hand closest to the fulcrum. Then think about throwing it straight back down into the head of the drum. It's important that you keep the stick moving straight up and down as you play rather than at an angle, so you can produce the best possible tone and get the maximum amount of rebound possible in each stroke. The stroke we use when playing the snare drum is very similar to the way that we dribble a basketball. You wouldn't dribble a basketball with only your wrist, and you wouldn't do it with only your forearm like this. Your wrist and forearm should work together to throw the basketball down toward the ground and follow it back upward as it bounces back up. In a similar way, you want to think about throwing the snare drum stick down toward the ground and then following it back up as it bounces away from the drum. You should also aim to use smooth, connected motions whenever possible. There are times in which your motions will need to be quick, but this should only happen when speed makes it necessary. Here's some examples of some nice fluid motion as we dribble the basketball or throw the drumstick down towards the drum. That's what it should look like. Now, if we go back to the quick, jerky motion I was referencing earlier, you may see things like this. Obviously not as good of a tone, and it looks much, much less comfortable as we play. So aim to use the first type of motion, the smoother, more fluid type of motion. Thank you for watching and for taking another step toward mastering the snare drum portion of the NSBA 8th grade All-State Percussion Audition. Please check out the other videos in this series for more detailed information about the different parts of the snare drum audition and the other sections of the percussion audition as well.